Yeah, I just thought I'd do that introduction, but just bring sound into this as a kind of opening, as a kind of invitation. And what I'd like to speak to about today is something which will be a bit like an appendix to the series, the three-part series about the question of esoteric love and relationships. I'm bringing this in relation to the image behind of the rebis, of male and female, and how they are together. And I thought I'd do this video very much because it relates to something that Felicity and I were speaking about last time, which is the whole question of the throat chakra and creativity. So I'd like to expand on this. I'm going to bring a quote from Judith von Halle. I put a quote out yesterday from this wonderful book, which you can't see. Okay, there you can see it. Yeah. Technical difficulties. There you go. Anyway, this wonderful book, I'll put it in the link if anyone wants to read it. It's only available in German at the moment, but I'm going to be doing some translations from this. So we're going to look, and I'll also put this in the link, but we're going to look at some quotes from this book, which I'll also put in the blurb under on the YouTube video. So again, have a look at that. If you want to, again, like we've said before, if you want to discuss work on any of these issues, you can find contact in the links below. Anyway, so without further ado, I'm going to move through some of two quotes from Judith von Halle in relation to Eden. Then we're going to also look at the in-breath and the out-breath in relation to a song that perhaps some of you know, which I'll also put in the link, which is a song from Birdy. I don't know if the exact title of it is Are We Strong Enough? But you might know it. Are we strong enough to let it all go? Are we strong enough to let it all in? And there's a very beautiful relationship here between what we're going to look at today in terms of the in-breath and the out-breath. So I hope I can bring some clarity with these things. All really in relation also to part 2 of esoteric love and relationships that we looked at last time, which is in relation to creativity, of which these are all significant, very meaningful relations to the whole subject of male and female. So first of all, let's I'm going to pull up this image first of all of I'm just going to read it. I'm going to read it out for you, and then the other quotes that I have from Judith von Halle I've got we can actually look at. But this is the quote which I posted the other day, which is: since the human being no longer lives in the unity of the divine breath, their nutrition, their thinking, their breath, and their language have become independent. But compared to the paradisiacal state, they are torn apart. Our earthly language is connected to our breathing process only insofar as this process itself is broken into 2 divergent parts, and our utterance is now bound to one of its 2 parts, to the exhalation process. So what we're looking at here is this in-breath that I was talking about last time, of how in anthroposophical terms, we have a contracting, the materialistic spirit, this contracting of concepts and ideas on the in-breath, and then the path of the out-breath, the way out and the way back to the spiritual is on the out-breath. So this is again trying to bring this back away from the images that we just passively inherit from biblical tradition, and seeing how these are actually scientific, exact ways of looking at realities. So we have to be flexible enough in our thinking to be able to look at things many times in their mirror image. And here we're looking at a path back for us now to go the path back to re-enter Eden. And that is again a flowing of our out breath, but out and then back to actually achieve some of the perception of what we're talking about here. So without that sounding too complicated, that's why I have brought this this song today from Birdy, because, and I'll put it's a beautiful song, and so I've put this in the comments, and I would encourage you to go and listen to this song, because like all of these things, some of the beauty and the wisdom that there is in life now, certainly in the last 100 years, has flowed into the arts, and we can find this inspiration flowing into different artists and films and different forms of art through the 20th century into our own time. So often we can find some of the deepest mysteries in the arts. So I'm just going to read this out to you, and as we go through, I'm going to just show you firstly this image, which is taken from the video of Birdy to this song. So that's the image, and you can see that the video is very, very beautiful video. And I'm just going to take that, and we're going to move on to this one, which is that everything? Let's see if we can do that again. Here we go. Yeah, to this image. So I'm just going to read it through, and I just like to, as I'm doing this, just think about how this relates to the in-breath and the out-breath, and see also this whole question of like we can see in so many of the paintings and in biblical tradition, of this being cast out from Eden, the longing to go back home, and often the longing that flows into many of the relationships to others in a very broad sense, in our relation to the world, and how this question of coming home or coming back. Anyway, I won't over talk the beauty out of it. I've been sleepless at night because I don't know how I feel. I've been waiting on you just to say something real. There's a light on the road, and I think you know. Morning has come, and I have to go. I don't know why. I don't know why we need to break so hard. I don't know why we break so hard. But if we're strong enough to let it in, if we're strong enough to let it go, let it all go, let it all go, let it all out now. If I look back to the start, now I see everything true. There's still a fire in my heart, my darling, but I'm not burning for you. We've started it wrong, and I think you know. We waited too long, now I have to go. I don't know why we need to break so hard. I don't know why we break so hard. But if we're strong enough to let it in, if we're strong enough to let it go, let it all go, let it all go, let it all out now. Let it all go, let it all go, let it all out now. Who says? Who says? Who says? Who says? Who says truth is beauty after all? And who says love should break us when we fall? But if we're strong enough to let it in, if we're strong enough to let it go, let it all go, let it all go. Let it all out now. Let it all go, let it all go, let it all out now. We're strong enough to let it all go. Now, what I want to bring in relation to this is, and you may have been also reflecting on how that relates to Eden, and many of the different words in those lyrics can well be brought into relation. And just like to look at this image, which I've purposefully put like this, we see of the man here walking somewhat melancholically, reflecting, dressed in black, reflecting down, looking down inwardly, perhaps we could say into that inner kind of dark cave of the senses. And then in the top half, we see man and woman facing back to back. And there's something quite ingenious and again, artistically beautiful in the way this video has been put together. And that is the two, you see the two kind of lights, the two northern light figures in the sky of the bottom image. And then if you impose these with the upper image, we have the sense of two living, two embodied, incarnated male and female figures. And then the tree quite nicely as a kind of uprightness. So without going into the deeper significance of that, which we might come back to at a further point, this is again asking us to change perhaps our perception and to start seeing things as a walking back on the spiritual path, back in time, as firstly a kind of introspective move of the man in the bottom image, and then later a rediscovery of, I mean, also for men and women, but later a rediscovery of this oneness, of the male-female oneness in Eden, and the way that's expressed through the song in many, many beautiful ways. So I'll just bring your attention firstly to the line, if I look back to the start, now I know I see everything true. There's still a fire in my heart, my darling, but I'm not burning for you. We've started it wrong, and I think you know. We waited too long. Now I have to go. And this question of separation or breakups, of course, this is a never-ending theme in so many love songs. But what I'm doing here with the esoteric side of this is bringing this back to its relation that all of us, male and female, at one point were cast out, that this is a point in human history where the human being was cast out of that paradisiacal condition where they were one with God. So this longing, as much as it is to be with another person, is a longing in essence to return to a spiritual connection. And once we understand this, many of these mysteries of male and female and creativity and the whole spiritual path start to become things that are far more accessible and become far more interesting for us to explore the laws of how men and women are creative together and how relationships correspond to the unfolding of some of these mysteries. So just coming back now here. Maybe if I just add one last thing going back, this is something I just wanted to emphasize. Just the whole, maybe some of you got this anyway, okay. But the whole let it all go, let it all out now. And who says? These are very, very beautiful questions. And maybe to bring this in relation to the out-breath and also to who says. Anyway, I won't do the explaining of everything thing. So coming next to, I'm going to read now a further quote from Judith von Halle. And we're just going to explore this theme a little bit deeper of what I've just been touching on. So this is, I'm going to share, this is the quote. So the division of the originally all-embracing God's death made the language for the earthly man in the state of his sense consciousness controllable. It was now subordinated to his own will. However, with this new freedom, at the same time, a moral contamination had entered the language from which man will have to free himself through his higher development of consciousness, which leads to a progressive formation of conscience when treading a Christian path of the soul. Since the beginning of his independence, which he gained through a descent to earth, it has become possible that when man speaks, form and content do not have to be in agreement. Thus, to the sensual ear, a bad thought, which is expressed by a word ugly in content, can sound seemingly fine-sounding, that the unpleasant or even malicious content of the word appears in a form of a pleasant sound, does not, however, correspond and belong to the content of that word. So I'll just leave that up and just try and explain some of this. And also it's not ideal because some of the translation could do with a little bit of fine tuning. So I apologize for that. But this division of the originally all-embracing God's death, what's this? Well, this is after the time of man's. Eden is the time when we still had connection with the spiritual world, with the godly. So the driving out from Eden can be described here in the German as Gottes Odem. And in English, we're seeking then for words to describe this as this oneness with God. And so this oneness, also the male and female oneness, is then driven out from Eden. It was, however, subordinated to his, he gets, it's now subordinated to his own will. So this is what we spoke about in the previous quote, where we see that what was once this unity now becomes a split between thinking, nourishment, breath, and speech. And what we are called to do now is bring these elements back together. How can we bring the breathing back together with our speech, back together with our thinking and our nourishment? And this is a path, again, without making it sound too complicated, this is a path of changing our perception and starting to think again how the spiritual interrelates with the human being. So this is not about intellectualism or making this all sound really, really complicated. Okay, it's like might need a little bit of commentary, but if we then look at this second part of the quote here, we're talking about, first of all, conscience, which again is not shouldn't be something really alien to us. It's about listening to what the Spirit is telling us about what is right, about what is morally right to do. And this question of conscience as the inner voice, I think this is something fairly self-explanatory. Then if we go on to the last sentence here, we have this possibility that the actual form of the word can appear in its opposite. And again, this is just a way of bringing to consciousness something that we find in everyday life, which is that a fine sounding, and we're all quite adept at this, I think, now after 100 years of the manipulation of words and images on the world stage through media and politics, is that we understand that fine sounding words can also contain that when we see these spiritually can actually contain something very unwelcoming or threatening, or what's described in German here as bösartig, as something that hasn't got the best interests of the human being at heart. And again, this is something that we've all had quite a deep initiation into, I would say, in the course of the last 100 years. And it's recognizing that the content, that the form and content of what a person says can be its very opposite. And I guess there's many expressions in everyday life where we can see that we have a very deep wisdom of this just in everyday speech. So somebody quite slimy, for example, yeah. So somebody very quite slick abilities in speech, but using those abilities to perhaps package something that is very, very far from fine and good and true. And there's numerous examples through the 20th century. And so what Judith von Halle is bringing our attention to here is something also that Felicity and I spoke about last time in relation to the throat chakra. And in this sense, I think if you follow something of what I'm trying to present here, it's coming back to this idea that for the man, the etheric is female, and for the woman, the etheric is male. And to the extent that the man develops that wisdom chalice of his own etheric, he's seeking in the feminine counterpart that male analytical, investigative ability of the female as a creative counterpart. And I think this very beautifully is expressed in some of these quotes from Judith von Halle. If we take time to read through them and like she says, to digest them, to digest in thinking some of these ideas that we're presenting here about esoterics in relation to love and relationships, we start to change how we think about the world, how we think about other people, how we think about the spiritual. And this can start to give us a new kind of nourishment. And all of this is then working with the in-breath and the out-breath. So with the in-breath, we're taking many of these new ideas. Okay, they might seem complicated. They might need work from us to understand them. This is like, again, a digestion process. We digest these concepts, these ideas, and then we bring them to new life. And this then when we, like Birdy says, on the out breath, when we let it all go, we let this flow out, and that helps us on this path. Now, this path is not just our own spiritual quest for ourselves, because that's really the key. The key, and this is something that we're going to look at next time, and I hope me and Felicity will come to this in the next video, is also the key how after the fifth chakra, we're moving up to the sixth. So anything that flows out in this sense of this creative speech is then looking for how it can flow out into society. And again, this is this path back, a return to the spiritual, back to the time of Eden, where the male and female are one, and we come more into tune with our creativity as we're here outlining. So I think I'll finish up just with, as you can see, I hope people are starting to get a better idea of some of the wisdom behind these images here of the rabies And to remind, we have the dragon underneath, and this is the figure that's stepping on the dragon, and we have these 7 symbols of the different planets around the sun and moon. Anyway, any questions to any of that? Very happy to answer them. You can put them in the comments down here, or you can I'll put some of this up in the different Facebook groups. And yeah, that's it for now. So I'm just going to finish, give this a nice rounding off as